Our family is elite. You know, high school dropouts, and the poor can just leave.
My mother-in-law, Emily, said that as she pushed my sister, Sarah, away. She judges everything based on educational background, so she's blind to Sarah's true nature. That's probably why she can be so cruel. Emily can't stand the sight of Sarah, even for a second, and is trying to get her out of the workplace, even though she's currently employed. Seeing this, I let slip. Then I guess Dad is fired. I had to explain the situation to a shocked Emily afterward. It wasn't something I should have said, but there's a deep reason behind it. Hearing it, Emily was stunned. She was apparently clueless all along. As I spoke, Emily grew increasingly confused. My name is Michael Kirk. I am a 38-year-old man who dreams of owning a pet. I have a wife, Linda. She came from the Smith family to marry me. She's 1 year younger at 37, and we attended the same high school. Linda also seems interested in pets, just like me. So, we were thinking about getting a dog or a cat soon. When we discussed it, our conversation went like this. Linda, do you have a preference for the type?
Not at all. I'm fine with a mixed breed, and I think adopting rescued pets is a great idea too.
We initially thought about getting one from the pet store, but then considered saving abandoned animals or pets that had been abused by their owners. Now, we're visiting several adoption events, looking for a pet that will be a good match with our family. My desire to adopt a pet probably stems from an incident in my childhood. I lived with my father, mother, sister, and a male dog, Ken, and lost many family members in a car accident. Ken saved my sister and me from the car, allowing us to live. After running to our parents, Ken was killed by the explosion of the car. Naturally, there was no saving our parents, and we could only watch and cry.
Michael, Dad, and Mom are gone. What are we going to do now?
I had to admit, I don't know either. I still regret not being able to comfort my crying sister, Sarah, back then. There was never a day as hard as when we lost those happy times in an instant. Afterward, we were taken in by our grandparents, but that event cast a dark shadow over our hearts. Despite deciding never to have pets again, I ultimately sought the warmth that was by my side in my youth and decided to have one again through adoption.
You once had your life saved by a pet dog, right? That's why you chose a job related to pets.
Yes, I want to repay the favor to other animals. Having grown up and graduated from college, I started a pet supply company and work as its CEO. What I want to achieve now is to make our next pet as happy as possible, in place of Ken, who is no longer with us. So, I work hard every day towards that goal. I drive to work, admire the beautiful scenery, walk through the company, and exchange greetings with the employees.
Good morning.
Nice weather today, isn't it?
Everyone's faces were lively and brimming with motivation. I want to be able to check on the state of my colleagues at this company anytime. That's why I pay close attention to the employees, and I'm relieved that no problems have arisen today. It's been about 20 years since I founded this company, and we've never faced major issues. I knew that smooth operations required not just a few executives, but the efforts of many regular employees. This is probably because my father, who exists in my memory, used to share the company's hardships with my mother.
The few elites tend to run wild, making it tough for the lower-level employees. Even the regular staff are essential, but they don't get that, threatening to fire them to keep them working.
All right, I got it. Don't grumble about such things in front of the kids. I'll listen to you as much as you need.
My father was quite a complainer, always seeking my mother's ear whenever something difficult arose. But having those memories probably helped me manage the company. As I reminisced, I found myself in the CEO's office. Entering the room, I took out my work tools and got down to business. There was a mountain of work, but I needed to get through it for the approximately 4,000 employees at this company. While staring at documents, I checked the designs for a new dog cage developed by the engineering department and planned meetings with major clients. I get to eat a delicious meal at a nice restaurant tonight, and I'll see Sarah for the first time in a while. I've got to be pumped up for it. Despite the workload, I brought up tonight's plan in my mind and verbalized it to motivate myself. Time flies when I'm engrossed in work. It felt like I had just arrived, but it was already noon. Shortly after, the PAR system announced it was lunchtime. It's already this time. Working non-stop can reduce efficiency, so I should take a break. I set aside the pile of documents and took out the lunchbox my wife made for me. The lunchbox, decorated with cute dog and cat sprinkles, soothed my tired heart. While finishing my meal, thinking about getting a new pet soon, I noticed an email from Linda on my phone. It was about tonight's dinner. Tonight, Linda, Michael, Emily, and I were supposed to dine together. But it seemed Emily would be a bit late.
Mom said she might not go after all. Does she really dislike Sarah that much?
I replied with a sense of disappointment and looked away from my phone screen. Linda and I have been married for a while since we tied the knot at 20. However, I haven't had much chance to talk with her mother. One reason is that she runs a well-known advertising firm. It's been hard to ask for her time amidst her busy schedule, so we haven't had many opportunities to talk. Another reason is her emphasis on educational background. She seems to think,
I don't want to associate with people who only finished high school. They haven't learned what they should have. Being with such people might lead to rude remarks or actions.
I want to properly introduce my sister Sarah to Emily, but it's tough because of her values. Especially since Sarah only finished high school. After being bullied by many girls in school, Sarah managed to graduate from high school but couldn't proceed to college. She must have grown averse to building relationships.
Michael, I don't want to go to school anymore. I'm scared to meet people.
I had resolved to raise Sarah properly, but felt powerless when this happened. Fortunately, Sarah managed to recover after a few years, but knowing she only finished high school, Emily seems reluctant to meet her. I wish they could come together somehow, but I'm still unsure how to make it happen. Hours later, after finishing work at the company, I headed to a restaurant. Upon opening the door adorned with beautiful patterns and entering, I was greeted by a woman's voice saying, "Welcome." I casually spoke to her. Are you working properly? You're not slacking off, right? We have important guests today.
I know that. I've put extra effort into the cooking, so make sure to enjoy and savor it.
The person who brought over the wet wipes and a glass of water to our table after we sat down was my sister, Sarah. Sarah has been working here for over a decade as an apprentice, aspiring to take over this restaurant. She fell in love with a taste of this place during her Sweet 16 party and has been honing her skills to succeed the owner. I hope you're not causing trouble for the owner.
Of course not. Once you're the company's CEO and I'm the owner here, working hard, we can easily take care of a pet or two. I have to work hard to own a pet, too.
Well, that's good to hear.
You don't believe me? Keep that up, and I'll spice up your dish with a ton of chili pepper.
Sarah and I live separately, so it's been a while since we last saw each other. Our homes are a bit far apart, so meeting up isn't easy. Making even small talk a delight. Perhaps it was because we were frolicking like that.
Are you cheating on me with her? You seem quite close.
Linda arrived late and seemed jealous. Sarah went back to the kitchen to bring us wet wipes and water as Linda joined me at the table. She's my sister, you know that, right?
Of course, I was just teasing.
By the way, where's Emily? Linda averted her eyes, her words unclear, looking apologetically at Sarah.
It seems Dad told Mom about meeting Sarah here, and she got angry, saying she didn't want to come. I wanted to keep it a secret until we met, expecting this would happen.
I see. I expected this, but it's still disappointing. I remembered the apologetic face of a male employee I spoke with before leaving the company. In fact, I was informed by an employee that Emily wouldn't come to this place. Though I knew in advance, it was still a shock when it actually happened. Linda, having received the wet wipes and water from Sarah, continued with a shrug.
Mom's attitude is well known back home. I'm sorry, Sarah.
No, it's okay. It's a fact that I only finished high school. I knew that I would be viewed in that light.
Watching Sarah respond modestly, I felt sad. Sarah hadn't turned to delinquency or failed at studies. It was the toxic environment that kept her from school, and yet she was judged so unfairly. I wished Emily could see for herself what kind of person Sarah is. Seeing Sarah standing dejectedly, Linda put her hand on her shoulder, offering comfort.
It's okay. You're a good person, Sarah. I'm sure my mom will understand eventually.
I hope so.
The kind-hearted restaurant owner gave Sarah a break, so the three of us continued our meal. Linda texted Emily, but the reply was just, "I have plans, can't make it." As expected, Emily didn't show up in the end. A few days later, I would unexpectedly encounter Emily. It was my day off, and I was lazing at home when I realized there was no food in the fridge. With lunchtime approaching and nothing to eat, I decided to go shopping, and that's when I found a lost puppy wandering around. It wasn't on a leash, seemingly stray, covered in mud. It must have been wandering the streets for days. It was especially dirty due to the recent rain. Its paws were particularly bad, caked in mud. I couldn't just watch and was about to approach to help, but unfortunately, a car passed by, startling the dog, and it ran off with incredible speed, making it impossible for anyone to catch up. Even for a puppy, dogs are quick. In no time, it disappeared from sight. Worried, I searched the area for a while but couldn't find the mud-covered puppy. While searching for the puppy, I somehow remembered the cat that Emily and her family take care of. Linda's family has a Maine Coon female with beautiful fur, living comfortably in an air-conditioned room, likely still enjoying a happy life. Being of pure Maine Coon lineage, I wondered if the cat would have been given such a comfortable environment if it were a mixed breed. Emily's words when introducing the cat came back to me.
Our kitty has a pedigree, a cat of good lineage. Impressive, isn't it? Different from the mixed breed dogs and cats wandering around. If we were to get another, it would have to be from a good bloodline as well.
Any mixed breed pet would probably be not allowed in her home. If one somehow got in, it might even be kicked out.
I will never allow our pet to get hurt by interacting with mixed breed animals. That's why I'm careful about friends bringing pets over. It's their fault if mixed breeds hurt each other, but I can't bear the thought of our precious pet getting caught up in that mess.
Emily would probably not even worry if she saw an injured animal, especially if it was a mixed breed. An hour later, feeling down about the puppy, I headed to the supermarket. I felt sad about the dog, but searching for it blindly wouldn't help, so I had to move on. I was surprised to run into Emily inside the store. Seeing her in a local supermarket I frequent was unexpected, as she usually avoids such common places, preferring high-end department stores according to Linda. It's been a while, Emily. I couldn't just ignore her, so I greeted her. She looked surprised to see me.
Oh, it's been a while, Michael.
I was confused by her reaction, but Emily quickly explained,
Don't get the wrong idea. I don't usually come to these kinds of supermarkets that only sell cheap goods.
Emily seemed to think shopping at a supermarket was beneath her, potentially alienating housewives trying to save money.
I was meeting an old friend and remembered their child, so I came here to buy a gift. It would be rude to meet without bringing anything, right?
I don't think that's necessary. Though having a gift is better than none, I never thought it rude to meet without one. I think that someone who gets angry if they don't receive something can't really be considered an acquaintance.
People expect it from us because we have money.
Emily wanted to avoid the subject further. Appearing anxious,
Are you still shopping here, Michael? As a CEO, you should shop somewhere more fitting for your status.
There's some truth to what you're saying, Emily, but I'm not used to luxury. I thought of the employees working at my company. Some strive for luxury, so it's natural for someone in a high position to live up to his or her income. However, my life has always been modest, heavily influenced by my grandparents, who taught me to make do with what we have, having lived through times of scarcity. This mindset makes it hard to justify changing my lifestyle, even if it might make others uncomfortable about indulging themselves. While discussing this, Emily noticed something.
Sarah works here, doesn't she?
Excuse me. Confused about how Sarah came up, I followed Emily's gaze. and saw Sarah working at the cash register. Besides her work at the restaurant, she was also working here. Something I hadn't known. It seems Sarah took on more work without my knowledge.
What do you think about this, Michael? You're a CEO, and yet look at your sister.
It hit me that Emily didn't know Sarah worked at the restaurant. While she knew a fair bit about me, she had little knowledge of Sarah due to the lack of interaction. She probably never imagined that the person invited to the restaurant worked there. Given the restaurant's fame, Emily would surely be surprised to learn this.
Because she's only a high school graduate, she can't get a decent job. If this is the only work she can handle, I can only imagine the barbaric things she might say.
Hearing this, I felt anger rising within me. Sarah, visible in my line of sight, was smiling and talking to the housewives at the register. Her ability to treat each person with care showcased her bright and lively nature. I wished Emily would drop her obsession with academic credentials and see the person right in front of her.
Doing a job like cashier work so happily, doesn't she feel embarrassed?
I think any job is respectable. It's not right to talk that way. While I value jobs requiring unique skills, I don't believe other work is lesser. Every job is essential. Without someone to do it, we'd all struggle. Why can't Emily see it that way? I wanted to change her perspective, choosing my words carefully. Sure, having only a high school education might limit job opportunities, but it doesn't define someone's entire future. Don't judge a person solely by their education level. Surprised by my retort, Emily stared back at me.
That's just idealistic. Reality isn't so sweet.
It might be true, but there are people with enviable jobs who aren't happy. Isn't that reality too? If the person is happy with his or her work, shouldn't that be enough? I felt relieved that pushing Sarah into further education didn't break her. Had I forced her to conform to societal norms and something happened, I couldn't face our parents in heaven. After expressing my views, I observed Emily's reaction. She looked down momentarily, muttering discontentedly about the importance of education.
Michael, you're wrong.
Surprisingly, Emily walked towards Sarah. Feeling something amiss, I quickly followed her. Approaching Sarah at the cashier, Emily spoke in an even tone.
Because of you, Michael has become twisted. Do you realize you're a burden to your brother? How troublesome for the family.
Startled by Emily's sudden appearance, Sarah stopped working and looked utterly confused.
If it were me, I couldn't acknowledge someone like you as family. If only you weren't here, there would be no complaints about Michael and Linda being together.
Hearing this, Sarah looked shocked and started crying. Maybe she had flashbacks of the harassment from her high school days. I rushed to protect Sarah, my important family member, but it seemed I was a bit late.
I've reached my limit. I can't stand being near you for another second, so just disappear from my sight.
With that, Emily shoved the stunned Sarah, saying,
Our family is elite. You know, high school dropouts and poor people can just go away.
Arriving at the scene, I was filled with unprecedented anger. This anger was like nothing I had ever felt before. As the head of a company supporting 4,000 employees, I blurted out something I shouldn't have. Then your husband is fired. Emily looked at me, startled, and said, "What? I'm the CEO of a company employing 4,000 people, including your husband." Sarah, still confused, turned her gaze to me.
I knew you were a CEO, but did you have that many employees?
Emily's focus on education probably made her overlook many things, including her husband's details. Now, with the surroundings becoming noisy, I needed to calm the situation. After the commotion, we explained the situation to the store manager, who rushed over. Sarah and I apologized, and thanks to the manager's kindness, we were allowed to talk in the employee break room. The break room had a large table and several chairs, where we sat down to settle ourselves. Sarah was still working at the register, as it was her shift, but it seemed the employees had just vacated this room, leaving behind scattered items on the table, like beaded dolls, snacks, and study notebooks. Facing Emily across the table, I saw her staring at me with discontent. "Can't you understand why I'm angry?"
I don't see why. Have I been rude to you in some way?
It seemed Emily genuinely couldn't grasp the reason for my anger. To her, judging someone based on his or her educational background might just be normal. "You haven't done anything to me, but I can't overlook the way you've treated Sarah."
Why? You must also wish she wasn't your sister.
Emily looked puzzled, furrowing her brows. I couldn't recall any instance where I might have implied such a thing, always having treated Sarah with care. I've never once thought of Sarah as a burden or an inconvenience.
Even though she's just a high school dropout who can only work a cashier job.
I kept my gaze steady on Emily, standing at the doorway. It was crucial to express my feelings without looking away. Is it only a matter of pride if someone has a good pedigree, and a shame if they don't? Are children only worth something if they're smart?
That's obvious, isn't it?
I wondered if Emily thought the same of her daughter, Linda. The urge to yell back surged within me, but I managed to restrain myself, clenching my fists out of her view. I believe a person's worth isn't determined solely by their education. Sarah's value should be based on her actions and words. Can't you see her for who she is? Emily, looking confused, picked up a beaded doll from the table. She arranged the dolls to illustrate one being excluded, with the others circled around it at a distance.
People without a college diploma are all worthless, in my experience. My respected parents said so it can't be wrong.
While speaking, Emily showed a hint of sadness, flicking away the excluded doll with her finger. Perhaps Emily, having lived longer, had seen various things, possibly including some painful past. But I couldn't accept her total dismissal of Sarah. So, I revealed something I had kept hidden. Understood. So, if that's the case, it's okay for your husband, who was deemed unexceptional and got laid off, to be fired from his current job, right? Hearing this, Emily, startled, questioned me.
Earlier you mentioned something about firing. What did you mean?
Clearly, Emily was unaware of the full picture, focusing solely on educational attainment and not seeing people for who they truly are. I decided to contact her husband, Keith. After a brief phone conversation, I addressed Emily again. "Please calm down and listen, Emily. Having received Keith's consent to explain, I had to delve into details. Emily sensed something serious had transpired, her expression growing tense.
Don't rush me. What happened to my husband?
He was laid off from his job a few months ago,
What?
but I hired him in my company. Keith is knowledgeable about cats and was immediately valuable as he had the skills we needed. Emily, visibly shocked, stared blankly at the fallen doll in front of her.
Why would that happen?
It started over something minor, apparently. A fight broke out after Keith was mocked by his boss about you and Linda.
The timid Keith.
I shared Emily's surprise when I first heard about it. Having met Keith a few times, he always seemed mild-mannered. Yet, it turned out he had indeed gotten into a fight.
What could have made him so angry?
I explained to Emily, who was visibly shaken, recalling the details. Linda and you are active in volunteer work, right?
Yes, we participate in fundraising and community clean-ups whenever we can.
Despite our differing views, Emily showed kindness through her volunteer work for those in need and the community. But some people don't understand why you would do that.
That's unimaginable to me.
What Linda and Emily were doing was commendable, yet some cite as mere hypocrisy. Keith was told by his boss that you and Linda were probably volunteering just for your own benefit, suggesting you were splurging with the donated money, which angered him. As I detailed what I knew, Emily buried her face in her hands, overwhelmed by the revelation.
It's disheartening that some see kindness and goodwill that way.
Then you understand how I feel. I also can comprehend your perspective on education. Emily looked at me, her expression changing as if she wanted to say something, but eventually remained silent.
I should leave for now. I'm not in the right state of mind to think clearly.
Understood. I nodded in agreement. I was tired too, and pushing my views wouldn't necessarily persuade Emily. Cooling off and reflecting seemed necessary for both of us. Before leaving, Emily put the displaced doll back with the others, forming a harmonious circle. Just as she was about to exit, she turned back to question me.
About what you said earlier. Are you planning to fire my husband?
I spoke out of turn. I have no intention of using my position to do such a thing, so please don't worry.
That's a relief.
With a sigh of relief, Emily left the room, looking exhausted. Days later, while working at the company, I unexpectedly got reunited with the stray puppy I had been concerned about. Keith had found it wandering nearby just a few hours earlier. He came back from a business meeting, and upon seeing it, he couldn't bear to leave it and brought it back.
I apologize for the inconvenience, but I couldn't just leave it.
I was informed by the security at the company entrance that Keith seemed troubled, and upon arrival, I saw him looking apologetic with a playful puppy at his feet. I intended to rescue it too, so don't worry. I was concerned after losing sight of it the other day, so I'm actually grateful to you.
What should we do now?
For now, we should keep it in a room until work ends. Afterward, I'll take it to the vet to check for a microchip, just in case its owner can be identified. While I doubted a stray would have a chip, I knew assumptions were dangerous. A worried owner might be looking for it, so it was important to check.
All right, I'll take responsibility and keep it in my department until then.
Thank you, please do. Back in my office, I worked diligently, preparing to take the puppy to the vet as soon as the workday ended. Finishing work 30 minutes before the usual quitting time was probably a new record for me, thanks to me speeding through my tasks. In the evening, I drove the puppy, now in a cage, to the veterinary clinic. Luckily, my company deals in pet supplies, so having a cage handy turned out to be fortuitous. Upon arrival at the clinic, I talked to the puppy in the cage before getting out of the car. Just hang in there a little longer. I know it's cramped. It was then that I unexpectedly ran into Emily, who had brought her Maine Coon cat for a routine checkup.
I came for a checkup, but what about that puppy?
It was abandoned, so I brought it here to check for a microchip and get it examined.
That sounds like a lot of trouble, especially with your work.
Our conversation, devoid of direct eye contact, carried a somewhat awkward atmosphere as we entered the clinic. Despite my initial confusion, Emily's guidance helped me relay the necessary information at the reception. While waiting in the lobby, Emily spoke up again.
Your company deals with pet supplies, right? That must have come in handy.
Yes, it did. I hope it somehow makes Ken, who's now in heaven, a bit happier.
Ken, did you have a pet before?
Yes, when I was a child. As I elaborated on my past pet, Emily seemed to sniffle slightly, murmuring, "I didn't know that." We fell silent for a while, but Emily occasionally glanced at the cage with a puppy inside. Are you interested? Puppies are cute, though adult dogs have their charm too.
No, I was wondering why you pay so much attention to a mixed breed. It doesn't bring any benefit, after all.
Hearing her words, I internally sighed. I had hoped our supermarket conversation might have led her to understand my viewpoint, but it appeared not. Isn't it sad to choose who to be with based on potential gain or usefulness? Isn't it enough to be together because we like each other? I spoke softly, checking our surroundings. The waiting room had people, but none were close enough to overhear our private conversation. Keith isn't elite, and he was laid off. Aren't you going to leave him?
What are you talking about? I can't do that.
Why not? I thought you wanted to be part of an elite family.
That's...
Seeing Emily struggle for words, I felt a bit relieved. She seemed to understand. She was wrong, but couldn't admit it due to her pride.
I should just divorce my husband, right? That would be better. My decision must be correct. What's wrong with striving to be excellent if it leads to our happiness?
Emily said in a strained voice, desperately trying to convince herself. To me, she appeared vulnerable and pitiful.
People don't even notice someone like me, a high school dropout, so looking down on me seems natural. That's why I struggled, and even repeated a year to go to college and change my final level of education. My effort wasn't wrong.
Emily seemed unable to contain her emotions anymore. As she raised her voice, people around us started to look in our direction.
I'm absolutely right. The wrong ones are you people.
With that, she stormed out of the clinic. Left in her seat, her Maine Coon cat meowed sadly. I couldn't just leave Emily in such a state. Concerned, I contacted Linda and Keith to help search for her. After the puppy's examination, I would join in looking for her. After visiting various places, we finally ended up at the river bank. Keith was the first to find her. He was already comforting a sobbing Emily by the river, which was reassuring.
Emily, I'm sorry. I should have been more aware of your sadness and talked more with you. Was there something in your past? I'm also sorry for not properly conveying the incident when I got laid off.
Afterwards, it seems that Emily and Keith were left alone and talked for about an hour at that spot. I later heard that Emily once cared for an abandoned cat there, secretly looking after it until it tragically died due to some local high schoolers' mischief. Because these kids didn't advance to college and continued causing trouble at the river bank, Emily had become overly concerned with educational backgrounds. However, her talk with Keith seemed to have cleared the air.
I've been terrible to you and Sarah. I'm truly sorry.
It's my fault for not communicating properly with my wife. Please allow me to apologize as well.
Hearing this, both earnestly apologized to Sarah and me. I also shared that Sarah was an apprentice at a well-known restaurant, which, as I expected, surprised Emily. After our discussion, the fact that Linda had given them a serious talking to for causing worry made Emily and Keith laugh tiredly, looking exhausted.
It's the first time I've seen our daughter so angry.
Me too. Linda is not someone to anger, that's for sure.
We might never win against our daughter, huh?
Surprisingly, Emily and I found common ground on this matter. Eventually, things settled down, and Emily, Keith, and Linda gathered at their family home for some quality parent-child time. However, it seemed things were still challenging afterward. Apparently, due to recent events, they had become the subject of local gossip. Emily's behavior at the supermarket and the vet clinic had reached many ears.
That lady over there, I heard she fights with her husband every night. People with a nice facade seem to carry a lot of stress, which is kind of scary.
Exactly. They claim to be an elite family, but their true nature doesn't seem so impressive.
Rumors spread about them being on the brink of divorce or Emily harassing the family she married into out of spite. Linda and I kept denying these rumors, but Emily stopped us.
I'll accept this as the consequence of my actions. Don't worry about it. I plan to work hard and regain trust.
Emily appeared more relieved and had been talking more with Keith, believing they could eventually overcome this challenging situation. During this time, we started keeping a pet. Of course, it was the puppy we rescued at my company. We named him Sam, and though he was quite mischievous, making daily care challenging, watching him grow brought immense joy. You've grown so much, Sam. Keep it up.
I'm looking forward to it.
Sarah seems to be enjoying her time just like us. Although there's still much for her to learn as an apprentice, she has recently gained the trust of the restaurant owner, being entrusted with many menus. Regular customers are now coming specifically for the dishes Sarah makes, and there's anticipation for the day she'll take over the restaurant. Even so, she's taking proper rest on her days off, so it's good that she doesn't seem to be overexerting herself. Despite the various challenges we've faced, The thought of Sarah becoming fully proficient soon is quite moving. Today is a day to play in the park with Sarah, Linda, and Sam. Sam, look, here's the ball. I'm going to throw it.
Don't throw it too far, or Sam will struggle.
Wow, look at him jump.
Watching Sam, who's grown fond of Sarah, charge at her and seeing her fall to the ground covered in dirt made Linda and I burst out laughing. Although our parents and kin are not here, we have these incredibly happy moments with our new family.